Okay, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about relationship based training and why I think there is a time and a place to talk about relationship based training or relationship in dog training, and when there is time to just say relationship or no relationship, things have to be taught a certain way. And the procedure of teaching certain things doesn't necessarily have a whole lot to do with relationship at times. And I'm going to talk about that because it's an experience that I've had recently with my personal dog. So it's from the perspective of a dog owner, but also from the perspective of a dog trainer training client dogs. If you train dogs for a living, you train more than a handful of dogs. If you just train your dogs, if you're an enthusiast or you're a person who does train and you do maybe participate in dog related activities or in some sort of sport where you are actively training your dog to do something, but you're primarily working with one dog or a handful of dogs, this might not make a whole lot of sense to you, and you might disagree with some of what I'm saying, which is perfectly okay. I don't have a problem with disagreement whatsoever. I believe we can be perfectly fine and get along great if you feel a certain way about a topic and I feel a certain way that is different about the same topic. But from my perspective, if you train your dog or your dogs and you are an active trainer, meaning you're teaching them constantly because of maybe something that you love to do, you love to do this activity with your dog, or because you are training actively to get better or to achieve a higher level of accomplishment with you and your dog in a particular sport. But if you do that, if it's only a handful of dogs or one dog, it's a given. You're going to put emphasis on relationship. You're going to believe that relationship is everything. You're going to buy into the idea that the relationship is key and that the relationship has to be there. And I would agree with you. I would completely agree because it makes sense, right? It totally makes sense for relationships to be a huge factor in this when it comes to learning. The dog will feel much more comfortable with you when you are teaching it certain things. And now the dog can be a little bit more cooperative, or the dog can be a little bit more relaxed with you because the dog feels safe with you. So naturally, that relationship is on point and your dog feels safe enough and comfortable enough to try a bunch of different things, explore a bunch of different options in the training process, which is going to make the training go that much smoother. And naturally, if you own your dog, if you train your dog, rather is what I meant. If you're training your dog, and in the training process, maybe you make a mistake or you get a little bit short, or maybe your patience maybe runs out, or your skill, kind of your lack of skill in a particular training area lacks a little bit, and therefore you send confusing messages to your dog, then I can also see how you would notice the relationship being affected by whatever mishap or whatever discrepancy that took place during your training, where you're trying to teach something, your dog got really confused, maybe you made a mistake, or maybe you lost a little bit of your patience, you kind of got a little bit emotional, and now a bit of the relationship was damaged, and now you see the effects of this in training. And this is further going to solidify your idea, your belief that relationship is everything when it comes to training. So from the perspective of a dog owner, I can definitely see that. I also train my dogs for things. I compete in sports, and I train my dogs for not just sports, but just different little things here in general that would make me owning them much easier and much more enjoyable with them knowing certain things. So I do actively train my personal dogs, but within my personal dogs, I have different personalities. So just to give you a quick, brief summary of what I have six. We have six dogs, and I say we because it's my wife, my kids. So we have six dogs, and I'm gonna make this breakdown so that it makes sense to you. We have six dogs. Six of these dogs are our responsibility. They live in our home. They're our dogs. Two of those six are just pure pet dogs. One of them is a 9-year-old Chihuahua. The other one is a 15-year-old Catahoula mix. That's what they do. They're just basically at this point enjoying their retirement, especially the 15-year-old guy. Right? He's our dog. He doesn't. The only thing that those two do is they're just they're there to help me when I'm training the client dogs. Meaning they're there as distractions. They make great distractions. They're good with dogs, so they really help me out with that. So that would be like their job, let's say. 4 of our 6 dogs are Malinois that are actively being trained for protection sports. Okay, so 4 of the 6 dogs that we own are Malinois, actively being trained for protection sports. One of those Malinois is trained by my wife, meaning that dog is, even though she's our dog, that dog is not my dog. That dog is my wife's dog. She trains that dog. She provides that dog with all the fulfillment, all the relationship, all the bonding. She exercises the dog. I really don't do a whole lot. Maybe, every now and then I do potty the dog. I'll take bites from the dog because I do the decoy work, but not even all the time. A lot of the times, the person doing the bulk of the decoy work for that dog is one of my club members, because we do it a lot of times during club. So I don't have a whole lot of contact with that dog. That dog is not my dog. That dog is my wife's dog. Okay, 3 of those 4 Malinois are my dogs. So even though they're our dogs, right, these 3 Malinois are mine. I train them. They're my responsibility 100%. I potty them, I feed them, I exercise them, I handle them when we're training. My wife has no contact. One of those 3 was raised by my wife for the first 6 months. So she did a lot of the imprinting. But then that dog came to me, and now that dog is fully my dog. And yes, these are all our dogs, but these 3 are my responsibility. So those 3 Malinois are mine. And now going back to the relationship topic, it is very interesting just owning these different dogs and me focusing on those 3 Malinois, those 3 which are mine, exclusively mine. The topic of relationship, even within those 3 personalities, are vastly different. Vastly different. One of my Malinois is 8 years old. So he's the oldest of the Malinois. Of course, he acts just as enthusiastically and powerfully as my younger dog. So he hasn't aged one bit. Now, he is all about drive. He loves his work. He's always been that way. He's not much of a, hey, pet me and love on me type of dog. This dog right here, the 8-year-old, if you didn't know him and you were to handle him, the transition period wouldn't take too long. It would be like a matter of you giving him a few commands and him realizing that he gets what he wants from you. That's how easy it would be. Now, the relationship aspect of it, if I were to hand him over to you, it would be more on, hey, whatever the hypothetical person would be. Let's say your name is John. If I go, hey, John, here, you're going to take over my dog that is 8 years old. I've had him since he was a puppy. I've trained him his whole life. Right? I know him very well. I know what pisses him off. I know what gets him excited. I know what things you should avoid. I know all of those things. I know the body language like the back of my hand. Right? I could tell you that, and you would have to learn all of those things. But if all I tell you is, hey, tell him to do this, this, and this, pay him, give him his ball. Tell him to do this and this and this, pay him and give him his ball. I can guarantee you that in no time, okay, in no time, maybe in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, this dog will be working for you the way that he works for me, because that's how enthusiastic he is about his work. To him, the work is the reward. He loves to work. Now, people might look at that and go, "Oh, then that means my relationship is terrible." People might say that. Okay, that means that you don't have a good relationship with your dog, because your dog, this is a line that I've heard before, your dog should want to do it because it's the relationship. It should be relationship based. People will say things like, your dog should want to do it because it's you. And I'm going to tell you, I don't agree with that. Again, it is perfectly okay for us to disagree. I'm going to tell you from my experience, I don't agree with that. Not always. In certain cases, yes, but in a lot of cases, that's not the case. That doesn't happen. And this is a lot of times a reflection on the dog's temperament more than it is a reflection on your handling, your training, or your adequacies as a dog owner, or your qualifications as a dog owner. You might be the best, amazing, most loving pet owner. If you have a certain dog with a certain personality that is a little bit more on the independent side, this dog will work for somebody else equally the same way he works for you, and at times maybe even better, depending on your skill. So, this doesn't mean that because of you, the relationship is not good. And because of you, this dog could work for somebody else and go to somebody else because this is your problem. No, this is a lot of times a reflection on the dog's personality. It's very important to remember that. It's very important to notice that. Now, if you only train your dog, or maybe one or two dogs, maybe you haven't quite noticed that. Okay, maybe you're not aware of that, or maybe you don't have the type of dog that will show you that. But that does happen. Okay, so Rust, now he does like me. He does look for me. He does hover around me. He is aware of where I am, where I'm going. But I know that he is so committed to his work, so committed to the task, that if somebody else were to show him, hey, I can also provide you with the same sequence of events that would allow you to get the payment that you want, he would be like, golden. I have a new boss. It's not a big deal. I can switch very quickly. Okay, so this is where relationship based doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have a good relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't like me or that I don't like him. It just means that he is able to adapt. Okay. On the other hand, you have some dogs that will work amazing for one handler, for one owner, one person. And if you try to switch to another handler, the dog doesn't have an easy time adjusting. Okay. It takes longer for that dog to adjust. And this is when we look at that and we go, oh, that dog has such a strong bond and such a strong relationship with that handler that going to the new handler, going to the new trainer, it's very difficult because there isn't enough of a relationship yet. Again, this is a temperament trait. This is a reflection of the dog's temperament, not necessarily the reflection of on the handler's skill or the handler's adequacies, qualifications as a dog owner. Because I have seen really shitty people that are really shitty with their dogs, You might know them too. You might know what I'm talking about. Okay, that are just very unfair with their dogs, but their dogs will work for them. I've seen it, and if you've been working with dogs long enough, you will have seen it too, or you will see it at some point where you look at the training, you look at the handling, and you go, wow, like this guy is so unfair, right? If you look at extreme examples, if you look at some of the videos that have leaked from training facilities, people doing really, really horrible things, that's obviously the extreme, but it doesn't even have to be extreme. If you look, if you ever run into certain dog owners, trainers that are, I'm not talking about heavy-handed necessarily. That's a different topic. I'm not talking about corrections or not corrections. I'm talking about unfair. The person loses their patience very quickly. They're very quick on the trigger when it comes to delivering very, very harsh corrections. And you look at it and you go, oh my God, it's hard to even watch. But you look at that particular dog might do amazing for that person. And why? It's because this dog understands the chain of events, the sequence of events that it takes for this dog to engage in a winning proposition, where the dog goes, okay, this happens, and yes, it might suck, but at the end of the day, I get this. I do this, and I get this, right? And the dog might even additionally have the bonding with that person, when the dog will go, I know you kicked my ass, and I know that you treat me horrible, but I am going to stick by your side. The bonding is so strong, right, that you can't look at that and go, wow, that's an amazing owner. No, that is more a reflection of the dog than it is a lot of times a reflection of the owner. I mean, it's an old school, very, very old school saying that, you could kick a dog and the dog will come running back to you. I mean, this is very, very old school saying, right? And it's sort of not a saying more than it is more of a concept that people know, like a dog, you can treat a dog very harshly and that dog will still forgive you. Right? So now you hear about this and you go, okay, yeah, dogs are amazing. But not every dog is going to do that. Some dogs are more independent. Some dogs, you treat them harshly, they will treat you harshly. Some dogs, you correct them unfairly, they will try to correct you. Some dogs, you neglect them, they'll run away. Some dogs, you love them, treat them amazing, they'll still run away. So what I want you to, if you're a listener and you believe in this whole relationship, here's the thing that I've noticed about dog training. There's a lot of sayings in dog training that people, the masses, just kind of adopt. They internalize it without putting a whole lot of critical thinking into it. And I'm here to give you my critical perspective on some of these topics, right? One of them being relationship, right? People put so much emphasis on that. Oh, it's relationship. Now I'm going to give you my perspective as a dog trainer working with client dogs. I get dogs that, and if you're a dog trainer, this happens to you regularly. So you should resonate with what I'm saying, and this should make sense to you. If a client comes to you, which if you're a dog trainer, you're getting clients on a regular basis, hopefully, right? You're not getting a dog, a month, right? You're probably getting more than that. And even if you do get only a dog a month, you do this on a part-time basis. Think about what happens. A person is leaving their dog with you, and they're not leaving their dog with you for several months. They're leaving their dog with you for a few weeks, sometimes a month, maybe a little bit more. Right? Now, a few weeks to a month. Typically, that's what we're looking at. And a lot of people do 2-week board and trains. And if you train dogs, I know, okay, if you train dogs in any number, like if you're training dogs and you've trained more than one dog already, right? Let's say you started training dogs a year ago, even a few months ago. You've already trained a handful of dogs. What you will notice is some dogs adapt to their new environment and then adapt to being trained by you very quickly. They bond very quickly. They adapt incredibly fast. And those dogs are great to work with because, they get going right away. They're like, hey, maybe the first night they're like, this is a little bit weird. I'm in a new place. I don't know where mom is. I don't know you. But then all you have to do is hand feed them. And then by the next day, they're going. They're like, yes, I know you. Okay, yeah, I get it. Yep, yeah, you're cool. And then in a few weeks, they look at you and interact with you as though they are your dogs. They adapted very quickly in like a week or a few weeks. And then the training goes really smooth. And this is where a lot of people will say, this is good relationship-based training. The dog is doing it for me, right? And I know if you train dogs, you've also had a different experience where the dog comes to you and the dog doesn't adapt, right? The dog is staying with you. They could be staying with you for like a couple of weeks or a few weeks. And it's almost like the entire time they know that they're just temporary guests. And sometimes, they don't adapt for like a week. And then the second week, you can start, things get going. And sometimes for 2 weeks, they act like they're guests. And then the third week, you get going. And in some rare occasions, you have dogs that they don't adapt the entire time. They're like, I don't know where the heck I am. It's very uncomfortable. I don't know you, right? And so what do you do then? Do you go, well, Mrs. So-and-so, I know your dog is here for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 weeks. Some of you guys offer 2-week board and trains. I don't, but I know a lot of dog trainers offer 2-week board and train. So let's say, the dog, you have that type of dog. You don't tell the person, hey, so I know you left your dog here for 2 weeks or a few weeks for boarding and training, but because your dog is not bonding with me yet, because the relationship isn't quite there yet, all I'm doing is I'm just hand feeding it. And we're not going to train yet. I'm just building the bond. Oh, 3 weeks are up? Oh, yeah, sorry. We didn't really get to do anything with your dog. So here's your dog, and here's the bill. Obviously, you don't do that. Right? You probably don't do that. You probably go, okay, it's been a few days. I know, Fido, you haven't quite adapted yet, but we kind of have to get going. And now you go into your dog training toolbox, not literally, but figuratively. You go into your dog training skill set toolbox, and you start now operating from a perspective of skill, from an angle of skill and knowledge. And you go, okay, look, you don't have to like me, but here is how you solve this problem. Here's how you get paid. Or whatever your training approach or your training methodology is, you whip that out and you go, okay, Fido, you don't have to love me, but here is how you improve your situation. You dive right into the training. And the dog will do well. The dog will learn. And that's still better than going, no. It's relationship based. We wait until the dog is bonded with us, then we start training. Yes, you can do that if you own the dog, because you have an unlimited amount of time with that dog. The way I train my dogs is going to be very different than the way I train my client dogs. My client dogs, and if you train dogs, you know what I'm talking about. You have a timeline. You go, okay, here is the service I'm providing. And I do, even though every dog is different, and even though the training is going to vary from situation to situation, at the end of the day, I have to deliver. This is what I'm getting paid for. This is the service that I'm providing. And this is the service that I have to deliver. And that involves you getting and going with your skill set over relationship. So this is why you need to challenge some of these commonly said phrases that you hear a lot in dog training. Oh, it's relationship based. Oh, the relationship is not good. Yes, sometimes the relationship is not going to be good. And you have to dip into your pocket and go, I'm a dog trainer. We need to address some of these things. Okay. I need to teach this dog how to do certain skills. And I'm going to use my knowledge as a dog trainer to do that versus relying on relationship. Okay. I'm not undermining the role of relationship. A lot of times the dog owner, the pet owner, the client needs to learn certain skills so that they can foster a good relationship, so that they can encourage a proper relationship between them and the dog. So it is important, but it's not everything. So that's what we have to remember. That's what I wanted to let you know. Relationship based training is good, but it's not everything. Okay. I'm going to give you a couple of other quick phrases that you hear a lot in dog training. And I made an episode prior to this one called I'm a dog trainer, not a dog lover. So listen to that one. And that's another one where, I got some messages and I got some comments of people saying, oh, that is, I got some good feedback. And I got some people saying, aren't you concerned that somebody's going to, see that and get upset or something? But it's the truth. People go, oh, I love dogs and that's why I train dogs. Yes, in general, we definitely want to do that, right? You definitely want to, you want to be in a career where you enjoy instinctively, where you don't have to look at that and go, I hate dogs and that's why I'm going to train dogs. But in the training process, you're looking at this from a trainer's perspective, not from a dog lover's perspective. So that's what that episode is about, right? Where people go, wow, I need to be a dog and I love dogs and this, and that's why I train dogs. No, you need to be an effective dog trainer first and foremost. So that's another one where people think that just because this is something that is pushed by a lot of people in the dog training industry, that we have to do it that way. Right. And even going back to training methodologies like e-collar training, again, you have to use your critical thinking and think to yourself, what works for me? What is it that I gravitate towards? Versus this is something that is set constantly, and because it's set constantly, it must be right. So the one I wanted to talk about today was that relationship-based training is not everything. All right, guys, it was good laying this episode out. Make sure you guys follow me on social media. Follow me on YouTube. Dog training is my passion. And check out my books on Amazon. Type in William Garrido in the search bar, and you'll see some of the books that I wrote there on different topics revolving dog training. And see you guys in the next episode.